This is the ninth episode of On the Serendipitous Side podcast, where we are connecting the author, or well, in this case, I was going to say even better, that maybe is mean to authors, but even more interesting, translators to the all of us readers. So yeah, I am Ashley,
I'm Emily.
and today we have Gretchen Schmid on. We're so excited. She translated Maud Ventura's Make Me Famous. So we are so pumped. Emily and I bonded over translated lit initially, but we can't really have author, like we wouldn't be able to talk to Maud.
You
Just
actually
doesn't
would.
work.
She speaks English beautifully.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
but
Well,
yes, but I'm very happy to talk to you guys, and I love that you bonded over translated works.
Yes.
we're so excited to have you on. So thank you so much. We really appreciate your time.
Of course. Do you guys know each other in real life, or was this like an online meeting?
We met each other online. We're going to meet this year for the first
Oh my
time ever,
gosh,
but we met through Bookstagram.
I love that.
Isn't that cool?
Wow, you guys are a success story.
I know. Yeah, truly not one of the creepy, terrifying stories.
So if you would, if you want to give us maybe like a little intro about yourself and then a reading from Make Me Famous.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Gretchen Schmid, and I have kind of a funny relationship with Maud Ventura's books, actually. So I am a translator from French to English. I also work in publishing, and I specialize in translated literature. And so up until about a year and a half ago, I was an editor, and I was an editor at HarperVia, which is the publisher of Make Me Famous. And I was the editor of Maud's first book. So I was the editor of my husband, and then as an editor, bought Make Me Famous, and then sort of very quickly after that, ended up making this switch into marketing, which is pretty unusual, but that's a long story for another time. And I'm on exactly the same team. I'm on the HarperVia team, and I do a lot of the marketing there. And so now I am the marketer for Maud's books as well, and then sort of in like a freelance capacity, am her translator. And that's really not usual for publishing at all. Like that's not if you're like, wow, is all of publishing so like are there like three people in publishing and they all just do everything? Very much not true. This was totally an exceptional situation. And it has been funny because I have not the world's most usual name. And so when I reach out to people, in my capacity as the marketer of the book, like sometimes they put it together with the translator. Actually, I think you were like, are you the same person?
And then I got all nervous. I was like fangirling as I'm begging for a copy.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I love it. Ashley's the sweetest for anyone for the three of my friends who will come on to listen to this later. Ashley sends these handwritten thank you notes sometimes, which are the nicest things ever. I still have
Oh,
them in my
that's so
office.
sweet.
I
Oh,
know.
Love
I
it.
felt so weird because I had sent a thank you and then you had gotten a promotion and you had the release come out and I was just like, her mailbox is just going to be full. Like it's just going to be mail from me. This is awkward.
No, I get a lot of emails every day, so don't worry. It's always nice to
Well,
get.
thank you. If you would like to read a little bit, you don't have to. It's totally up to you.
No, I will. I spent some time this morning picking a
Yeah.
passage. Okay, I'm gonna drink some water.
Me too.
Yeah.
A little kombucha, but close enough.
Ooh. Okay. So this passage is actually it's from the middle of the book, but it's actually the first thing that I translated for of this book, not in general. And the reason was I was reading it in French. I was reading sort of an early version of the manuscript that Maud had sent me. And as I was reading it, Cleo's voice, the voice of the main character, this woman, this French American woman who wants more than anything to just be famous, and specifically to be a famous singer. Her voice came across so clearly to me in English. Like as I was reading it in French, I felt like I knew what Cleo would sound like in English. And that might have partially been because Cleo spends most of the book in America. And so, she's speaking English and she's surrounded by, Americans. And so I felt, I think, very confident in knowing the types of, words she would use and the type of language she would use. But this was sort of, I think I got like halfway through the book and I was like, oh my gosh, I really hear her voice so clearly. And just for fun, I picked this one passage. It was this passage that I had recently read to like kind of just do a test translation of, just for myself. I wasn't at the time planning to translate the novel. And it is after Cleo gets famous, she's on this press tour for her album. I think it's her first album. And she is doing all these interviews, back to back to back. And Cleo is very smart and very canny and knows how to, put a certain version of herself across, but also is pretty ruthless and not a nice person at heart. So the way that she talks about fame is very funny and also very, I think, telling. So this is her when she's talking about training to do all of these interviews. The advice I got from my team was clear. I should promote myself, but be careful not to slip up. Alan, my image consultant, handed me a list of 207 subjects to avoid speaking about publicly. There were the obvious ones: abortion, gun control laws, international politics, as well as the less obvious: blended families, the cattle industry, clowns. During our media training sessions, Alan summarized the goal as follows. Everyone needs to know you, and no one should know what you think. It meant talking all the time without saying anything, a skill that had to be learned. We spent entire days working on it. My English was flawless, but my team told me to adopt an accent for certain expressions to add some French charm. They suggested I also pretend to forget certain words. How do you say apprêter in English again? I had French phrases at the ready to use when the time was right. Lines from New Wave films, inspirational quotes by Napoleon and Simone Weil, and most important, quirky proverbs that didn't exist in English. In one interview, I trotted out a literal translation of remettre l'église au milieu du village, alluding to putting the church back in the middle of the village. In another, I bypassed the English practice makes perfect in favor of the French, you only become a blacksmith by working over a forge. I'd never been so funny and lovable. They also helped me to choose the right ways to describe my past, insisting I emphasize that I did it all by myself. This wasn't exactly true. It's not like I came from the middle of nowhere. My father had a degree from Yale. I grew up going back and forth between the States and France. I went to prestigious schools, but they preferred that I highlight the fact that I came from a family of reserved intellectuals. Unlike with most singers today, no one could claim that I succeeded only because of my parents, accused me of being a Nepo baby. And last, they taught me to always compliment the journalist before the interview started. I love your jacket / earrings / hat. To never criticize a living artist. If people asked what kind of music I disliked, I answered Schubert. And to maintain that I preferred Coke to Pepsi. Coca-Cola was sponsoring my tour. I was ready.
Love it.
That's so cool hearing you read it.
It is super cool. Thank you.
Of course. It's so funny to revisit. I spent so much time with this manuscript, but it's like a year and a half in the past now. So it's funny to revisit this.
Yeah, new things
Yeah.
that you find taking up space now instead.
Definitely.
So I was curious if you would tell us about what got you into translating and a little bit about your background and training and whatnot.
Yeah. So I got into translating kind of a little bit by accident. I majored in French in college, which also was by accident. I started out as a comparative literature major, and I had big dreams I really wanted to go to Morocco. And I had big dreams of studying French and Arabic, and doing a complet degree focusing on North African literature. And I took 1 year of Arabic, and it like took over my life. It was so time intensive. You would just be spending like hours in the library every day watching these videos of like people's mouths making the Arabic sound. It was very intense. And I kind of realized like, I think this would be a fun area of study, or if not fun, a fascinating area of study, but I don't know that in my life I want to do anything with Arabic. So this is maybe not the best use of my time. So I dropped Arabic and then was kind of left with French and was like, I guess I will be a French major now. And then I knew I wanted to go into publishing pretty early. And I went to school in New York City. So I was able to do all these internships in college. And right after college, I ended up getting this job at a little agency called the French Publishers Agency. It was based in New York, but it was a French, sort of a half French company, basically. And their job was to try to sell the rights to French books to American publishers. So basically, they were trying to promote like the translation of French books into English. And there were 3 of us there. It was really, really tiny. And I very quickly was made like a kind of quote unquote agent. I had no idea what I was doing. I kind of just like would send these emails that are really embarrassing in retrospect to publishers, to editors, like who I then would meet later. Like I know a lot of them now, and I'm like, oh my God, it's so cringy that I, as a 22-year-old, like pitched this to you. But lots of times we would be just pitching the same editors over and over because there were so few editors who spoke French. And even the ones who did, they weren't necessarily, a lot of them like read French, but a little laboriously, like it wasn't, editors read very fast, but like when it's a second language or a third language that you're not all that comfortable in, it's very hard to skim. So, and I learned this, when I then became an editor and would receive French manuscripts, and it was like, I just set aside twice as much time to read the French because there's just no way for me to skim through it easily. But anyway, all this to say, we were always sending to the same editors, and I wanted to make it like more likely that I would ever sell a book. So I started doing these little sample translations just in the hopes that like they would read, 10 pages and get a taste for it and be inspired to read more. And then as I started doing those, I realized like I really loved it. It was like people always talk about flow state. It was the only time that I like had ever experienced entering flow state.
Cool.
Yeah. It was something about like, it sort of scratches the same itch as editing for me, which is that you're taking someone else's words and trying to, in a way, editing is translating, right? Because you're taking an author's intentions or an author's first draft, and you're trying to sort of like translate it into something that will get their intentions across. And you're doing the same thing with translating. And that appealed to me so much more than writing my own things. Like I love writing, but actually coming up with my own ideas was not something I wanted to do. So I loved just working with other people's. And then, from there, I think I had a bunch of connections through the agency. And so I started begging people to let me do translations. And I think I've translated maybe 5 or 6 adult, maybe 4 or 5 adult books, and then a bunch of children's as well.
Amazing.
Yeah. So you did write some of your own stuff at one point too?
I do, but I never get past like 2 pages, It's really, I don't know if you guys know this, writing is hard.
Oh, so hard.
That's why I don't do it.
Yeah, we ask so many questions, because it's just like, I love art, like visual art, and paintings and stuff, but I don't paint. But we love books, but we don't write. But all the authors, we ask all these questions, and they think we write because we love hearing about the process. We're like, no, we just like nerd out. We just like y'all to tell us about how it all happens. But no, no writing.
I love that.
It's fun. Yeah. So how many languages do you speak?
Oh, just 2, really.
Awesome. French.
I have very mediocre Spanish.
And if you were going to choose another one, what would it be? If you were going to learn another language now?
It's funny that you ask that because I always go back and forth. I've taken Spanish lessons as an adult, and I've taken German lessons as an adult. And, Spanish is the most useful. Mm-hmm. There are also so many amazing Spanish translators out there that I don't think I would ever,
right.
You really have to know the language so well, and I would just probably never get to that point. And then sometimes there is a part of me that's like, should I go back to Arabic? Should I learn Arabic? But the other thing that was so tough about Arabic is that you learn this formal version of Arabic. Basically, you're learning the written version, this formal called Fusha. And it's basically like, it's what, newspaper announcers will use, or it's the sort of formal high written register, but no one actually speaks that way. Mm-hmm. And all the dialects are very different. Like if you learn the Egyptian dialect, and then you go to Morocco, like it's going to be completely different. And then if you go to Lebanon, it's completely different. You have all these different. So yeah, that I think I was just like, this feels like a losing battle for me.
Fascinating.
Wow. I didn't realize, I mean, I guess hearing it, like I can hear differences, but I had never thought about that. Yeah, you just blew my mind. Sorry. Do you read for pleasure more in English or in French?
Probably in English. Yeah, I do read in French sometimes. A weird thing that I like doing sometimes is reading books that I've read already in English. I like reading the French translations of them, which I realize kind of makes no sense. It's like the opposite of why most people want to learn a language. They're like, why wouldn't you want to just read the originals? But I find it so fascinating because then I can like really see exactly which choices the translator made. And
Yeah, that would be cool. I don't think that's weird at all. That I wish I could do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it seems like it could be really helpful, actually, like a good way to learn methodology and stuff like that.
Definitely. Yeah. And I think it does, I mean, to a certain extent, I think it can make you a better translator, even if you're going the other direction.
So what's the translation community like? Like, do you have other translator friends? Do y'all ever like, you know how writers will like bounce ideas off each other? Do you have something you call up?
Yeah, the translation, I mean, there are a lot of different translation communities. It's funny because I know so many translators, and so many of them I know not as a fellow translator, but like as their either editor or marketer. And I think a lot of them don't even know that I translate. I don't even, it was only really recently that I even started like telling people I was a translator, because I just had such, and still do to a large extent, like have huge imposter syndrome about it. I'm just like, no, I'm not a translator. Like my husband will be like, okay, you've translated 3 books that have been published. And I'm like, I'm not it. I'm just a person who happens to have translated 3 books. And I still feel that way, honestly. But yeah, I mean, translators are, it can be a really, like writing, it can be a pretty lonely profession, and definitely a discouraging one. Literary translation, especially, you know, everyone has to have multiple jobs, and for everyone, it's like a labor of love, not a
right.
Really lucky, and then it's your full-time job. But for most people, it's like it's something that they do on the side. So yeah, there are a lot of translation sort of collectives and groups and moral support and all sorts of things.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
that's nice to hear, because there are so many translators, but it's across so many languages that I didn't know. Do you like have friends that translate all different languages, or do you find like you have more in common with French translators?
I think I would actually have a harder time hanging out with French translators, because I would feel so like in competition with them.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm like, what's a nice way to say this? I would feel really in competition with them. Yeah. I mean, I think translators tend to group together based on what their target language. So the source is the language you translate from, the target is the language you translate into. So, you know, you have a lot of American translators who are friends with each other, but who translate from all different languages. But I do know, like, I mean, with French and Spanish, for example, there are so many translators that it's such a, you know, vast field. But then when you get into less common languages, at least not less common in the world, but less common in the world of American literary translators, I think it's pretty hard to not know the others. Like, you know, if you have like 5 Thai to English translators, like they're kind of all going to know each other. So yeah, I have always wondered like how they must be quite close, or maybe they're not. Maybe they're all in competition with each other too.
Yeah, it is something that it is a curious thing, you know, just wondering.
Yeah, definitely.
So what drew you to Maud's writing?
Oh gosh. Okay, so I'm going to tell you the story of her first book first. And okay, so during the pandemic, I spent a month in Marseille with some friends. Very, very lovely month. It was like one of the best months of my life. And I think at the time I had my husband on. It's so funny to talk about the book because like it always sounds like I'm just talking about my husband.
I was visualizing with your husband.
Yeah. My husband actually was in Marseille with me, but like I had the book. So I had the book on submission for several months, and I was sort of like mulling it over. I had read the first, I kind of had like dipped into it. We always use the phrase dipped in. I feel like no one else uses that, but it's a very publishing thing. I had dipped into the first chapter or so and just thought to myself, like, oh my gosh, this is so French. And I'm just not sure, that it's going to, I think most readers are going to put it down after 2 pages in America. And then, so I kind of didn't really go back to it. I didn't turn it down because like I still loved the idea of it, but I just kind of like put it aside. And then I was in Marseille, and I saw the book in a bookstore and bought a copy and then started reading it. And once I got past those first like 5 pages, I was totally hooked. And the fun part about reading a manuscript as an editor, or in this case, like, reading a manuscript in another language that you've heard very little about, is that it's like everything is genuinely a surprise. There's no like hype around it. I mean, sometimes there's hype around it, but there's no like, no one's telling you like, oh, there's this amazing twist, or like, oh, just wait till you get to the end, or, oh, it's actually like really funny. And so I just didn't really know much about it other than that it was this book about this French woman who's obsessed with her husband. And so getting to discover how funny it was such a delight. Like I would just be cackling out loud, like on the beach in Marseille. And then when I got to the end, actually, I like audibly gasped. And I think I was staying with a friend, and I think I ran into a room and I was like, oh my God, I finished. You'll never guess what happened. So then I decided to buy the book. But I sort of made my offer contingent on the idea of changing the beginning. So I don't know if you guys know that. I actually don't know if this is like common knowledge. The English version of My Husband is slightly different than the French version.
I didn't know that.
What?
It is. So it has a different beginning. The prologue is all made up new for the English edition. And then, the sort of after the prologue, when it goes back to the whole part where she's saying, I'm in love with my husband, et cetera, that's very cut down. And then there's like, I think there's like 1 or 2 sex scenes added in to the English version that were not in the French version.
Fine.
Yeah. And so what's so funny is I'd made my offer and sort of said, like, I love this book, but if we were to publish it here, I'd really like to be able to make these changes. I'd like to add a prologue and change the beginning. And so many authors would have been like, absolutely not. Like at that point, Maud's book was already a huge success in France. Like she had every right to be like, why would I do that? Obviously readers like it as it is. But Maud is a very unusual, I would say, author in that she really wants feedback and she really wants input. And I think she was just so intrigued by this like idea that someone had this very clear picture of how they wanted to publish the book or what they wanted to do to edit it. And so she actually, I think there was one other publisher who made an offer on the book, and she accepted mine like specifically because she wanted to work on the edits. So yeah, but it's funny. I met her for the first time actually in Paris a year ago, and she was telling me that sometimes people will still like DM her and be like, did you know that they changed your book for the American edition? Because like people are so worried that like we did it without her knowing. And she's like, yes,
that's crazy. So you do right. I mean,
it was like pulled from, she wrote it. I just was like,
that's so cool.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Truly.
Yeah.
I know. What a cool story.
Yeah.
She sounds like such a cool person to be into that idea and like everything you described about her. That's really neat. And that you got to meet her.
I know. It was fun. We're the same age, and it was
wow. That's so neat.
Yeah.
Do you have an author in English that you would compare her writing to at all?
Ooh, it's a great question.
It is a great question. I thought so too.
I feel like I'm always, this is a throwback. This isn't a contemporary comp. I feel like I'm always comparing her to Patricia Highsmith a little bit. Because you sort of have those like, it's like a very psychological thriller in that you don't necessarily have a ton of action, but like the tension is really palpable, and there's just sort of this atmosphere of like unease.
Yeah.
So I feel like I've always used her. And then I worked on, did you guys ever read The Perfect Nanny by Leila Slimani? It was like a big book, like
yeah,
maybe 10 years ago, 8 years ago, something like that. She's actually another French author. And she wrote this book translated into English as The Perfect Nanny. And when I first read My Husband, I thought, like, this definitely has shades of Layla Slimani in it. Highly recommend it. You guys should read it.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm writing it down right now.
We love all the Rex. Yeah. So what was the most difficult aspect of the translation process for Make Me Famous?
Ooh, okay. Let's see. I'm like, there were so many difficult aspects. So one was that we did it very fast. Maybe not that fast for someone who's a full-time translator, but for someone who's working full-time, it was quite fast. So I really do feel like I kind of like devoted my life to it for a little while. And the reason was that we wanted to keep her on a summer publication schedule. So My Husband had come out in 2023, the hardcover, and then the paperback came out in 2024. Is this right? Yeah. And then we wanted Make Me Famous to come out in 2025. And so to meet that, we had to like really rush. And that's actually part of the reason why I ended up doing the translation for this one, is because I was like, well, I'm very invested in making this happen. So I will, but the other thing that's funny is that I don't know if you guys have ever have spent a lot of time with French people, but in general, they're more blunt than Americans are. You guys are, I feel like maybe you know this. You're
yes,
smiling.
Yes.
Yeah.
I just from the lit like that I've read that's been translated, that's one of the things that I love about French lit is that the bluntness is just so apparent.
Yeah. Like they will, I mean, and obviously this is a huge generalization, but for the most part, like Maud actually used to tease me a little bit when I was editing My Husband, because she was like, she was like, my French editors will just put a big X in the margins, or they'll put a no, or she's like, they'll just do these notes. And then you're always like writing these long comments that are like, well, maybe you could consider like shortening this sentence just a little bit. And then I would like explain why I felt that way. And she was like, you really don't need to do this.
Oh,
so all this to say that I'm used to both giving and receiving feedback, and I think in a very American way. And Maud was so involved on this translation. Like we did it in pieces to speed up the process. So instead of like me translating the whole thing and then sending to her, I would send it to her in chunks, and then she would send me back notes, and then I would send her back notes, and we would go back and forth. And like I think I have like 25 different documents on my computer.
Wow.
Various like versions of the manuscript in different iterations. But sometimes her comments would come across to me as like so almost like I was like, oh my God, I am just absolutely a fraud, and she's regretting ever having asked me to translate this.
oh my God.
French.
Yeah, because she would just say like, this isn't right, or like she would just say like this she had this one phrase she would use where she basically was like, this doesn't capture the poetry or like the lyricism of the French original. Like,
no pressure.
Oh my God. It's so funny because to her, I'm sure it was just like, yeah, that's what you do. You give each other feedback. And
of course, yeah.
And to me, I was just like, oh.
You're like, I'm not crying.
Yeah. So it was good. It was a good like toughening up experience for me.
Absolutely. Yeah. For sure. Growth. Absolutely.
Growth, for sure.
It sounds like everything about this translation is pretty rare. Like, is the process usually like this, or do you read something that you like in French and then you pitch it to, I mean, in this case, HarperVia, but for translators in general, like, is it that direction, or does the publisher buy the rights and then find a translator?
Both can happen. Yeah. So basically, so often when you get, I'm going to talk as an editor here because that's the easiest way to talk about the acquisitions process. So oftentimes when you get something in translation, it comes sort of with a translator attached or a translation sample attached. And that might be because it's coming from the translator, or it might be because the author's agent or foreign publisher has already kind of like commissioned a translator. So oftentimes you do end up just going with that translator. And there are some translators who are really good at pitching and sort of acting as their own agents to try to convince you of, why you should buy this, and then also why you should hire them as translator. But it can also go the other way, especially if the editor reads. So with a number of the French books that I published as an editor, because I read them in French, there wasn't a translator attached already. So then I would have to sort of decide or think who might be a good fit for this. And so then you end up going, you ask colleagues and you see who's translated similar books recently, or, is there someone you've always wanted to work with, or, and so then you reach out to them. So it can go either way.
Do authors have much say, or is it more the publisher that gets final say?
Weirdly, authors do not have much say.
Wow.
Fun fact. I mean, I'm sure they could if they really wanted to. I think, especially if you're an author who's translated into all these different languages, I think at a certain point, if I were to write a novel, for example, and somehow this novel were sold in, let's say, Turkey and Japan, I would not have any opinions whatsoever on who my Turkish or Japanese translator should be.
Right.
I'd be I don't know who they are, and I don't know what makes a good translator, and I don't know. So in that case, it totally makes sense to leave it up to the publisher. You do have authors huge authors, Isabella Allende or something like that is going to have a translator that she works with, and you stay with that translator for many books. But oftentimes it really is much more the publisher's decision than the author's.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And authors really vary too in how involved they want to be in the translation. Sometimes I've translated books where my extent of the communication with the author has been that I make a note of all my questions and queries as I go along, and I send a document to their French publisher and I say, can you get answers for me on these? And then they send back that document with one sentence per query. And that's it, that's which is really funny. And then, Maud was the polar opposite of that, really.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
So in other books that you've translated, maybe that weren't in such a time crunch, do you normally read the book all the way through before you translate it? And if so, more than once, or what is that process like?
I usually do. Yeah. Especially with a novel, not as much with, I'm working on a project right now that's nonfiction. That's a very kind of cute art book about fashion. It's 100 pieces of clothing that have revolutionized the world. So it's very formulaic and each one. And so I'm kind of I don't need to read 70 to 100 to know what the voice is going to sound like. So for something like that, I just, go as I go. But for a novel, definitely reading it first.
Yeah.
Generally I read it through once, just sort of without thinking about the translation. I just read it through as a reader. And then I get a printout. I print out every page of the manuscript. And I have to really put myself on a regimen to get, I'm okay, so I have, 80,000 words to do, and I have 4 months to do it in. So it's 20,000 words a month. And so this is how many words a day I need to do. And I split it up for myself like that. And then I go and I use the printouts and I take notes on them. So I'll go through, if there's a word that I either am not super familiar with, or more often I know the word, but I don't necessarily have a perfect translation in English. I sort of have a sense, but then I'll go through first and look those up, or I'll look up, anything else that is new to me, terminology, sayings, putting the church back in the center of the village. I didn't know that one.
Yeah.
And I'll make notes of those. And then once I have that sort of annotated paper, then I actually sit there and I look at the French and I type up the English.
Wow.
So I guess it's kind of the third time at that point.
Right.
I guess it's my third go.
Makes sense. I mean, it seems like it would be really hard not to be super familiar with the content.
Yeah, definitely. And sometimes things do change. Sometimes you won't have realized that an author actually has kind of a tendency to use one particular word over and over and over. And you won't realize that on your first way through until all of a sudden you find yourself being oh, was that intentional, or is that like is that a bug or a feature, so sometimes you do kind of like find those things as you're going and have to make a decision as to what to do with them.
In Make Me Famous, there were quite a few pop culture references. Were they the same in French, or did you have to like do a one-for-one swap on some of them?
They mostly were the same in French. Yeah, she did a lot. She definitely did a lot of research. Some of them I think are pretty obvious who they're referring to, if it's not like out
right.
But like, and then some of them are a little more hidden. There were definitely things like, I remember there's one point where she had her, let's see, Cleo's agent was American. I think it was Stephanie. I think it was her first agent. So she's this like Italian American woman. And in the French, she drove a Twingo, which is like a very French little car. And Cleo like notes this because as she's leaving Stephanie, she basically is like, I don't want, maybe Andrew drove the Twingo. Okay, one of her agents drove a Twingo, and then the next one didn't. And so she basically was saying something like, I don't want an agent who drives this car. I want an agent who drives a Bentley.
Yes.
And I was like, do I change this or not? And then I sort of thought like, no one's going to know what a Twingo is, but you're always, there's really no hard and fast rule about whether you change something like that. And then I thought like, wait, they don't even make Twingos in America. Like no one even I don't think it would be possible for her agent to drive a Twingo. Like, so then I felt pretty comfortable correcting it. But then I remember like I was running lists of like different models of car by Maud. I was like, what if I say a Honda Civic? What about like a Toyota Corolla? Like what's she's like, I don't know. I'm like, these are I would have to give her, I'd be like, this is like a really basic, reliable car that like you would expect kind of like a suburban, like it's not an SUV. So I would give her that kind of like detail and we would go back and forth on which was the right one.
That's fun.
Yeah. I think we ended up with Honda, which isn't American either, but like,
yeah, but very common. Yeah.
My car's a Honda Civic, so I was totally fine.
Hey, I've had two, loved them both.
They're so good.
They're so good. You can never go wrong with them, definitely. So what is the gender balance like in the translation industry? Regarding translators, sorry, that could have been way on the question.
That's a great question. I would say like most of publishing, it's more women than men for sure. But there definitely are, plenty of male translators. I think where it gets interesting is, and this is something I run into both as a translator, like a little bit with a moral dilemma, and as an editor, is that most translators working in English, at least that are very well known, are white Americans. And so there's less of like a racial or ethnic diversity in translation. And so that can be tricky because sometimes, like I published this book as an editor that the author was French, but she was of Algerian descent. And the book had like a very strong element. It was about this Black family who moved into this white town. And I was like, it would be so cool if I could find like an Algerian American translator, and I could not find. I mean, I'm sure they're out there. I just was not able, using the resources available to me, to find one. So I think that's sort of where you get into situations where you're like,
wish it were different.
Exactly. Yeah.
I would agree with that for sure. Definitely.
Yeah.
And I'm sure someone writing a book about that would especially also love to have, if that was an option, to have someone translate their book who,
yes.
could empathize in a different way than we can.
Yeah.
Totally makes sense. Definitely. Yeah. Wow, that's so interesting. So do you see a lot of effect right now with AI in the translation industry, and what do you future outlook of that? I know this is like a multifaceted question here I'm throwing. I could not ask.
It's a pain point, but yeah, you should ask. Yeah, definitely. I mean, certainly just in the last 2 years, 3 years, I think like the capability of AI to translate literature really has increased pretty significantly. I sometimes will plug things into a translator just out of curiosity to see what it does. And sometimes I'm like I did it sometimes for I would like translate a page of Make Me Famous, and then I'd be like, I wonder what, Deep L was the one that I used. I wonder what Deep L would do. And sometimes I would feel so horrified because this turn of phrase that I had spent so long searching for, and then, like felt so clever to have found, it would somehow come up with the exact same one.
Sick.
And I was like, oh my God. But then, I mean, there were also other times where it would be completely off.
Of course. Yeah.
But it's true. I mean, it's really hard, right? Like the whole thing with the book publishing industry is that it's this mix of commercial and art, right? Like you have publishers who are trying to make money, and they're corporations and they have a bottom line, and then you have artists who are trying to hold on to their art but also get paid enough to make a living, and those things are always have always been in conflict and always will be. And it is hard to make a business argument for why you shouldn't, for example, get AI to do like a first pass of something and then get a translator to go in and kind of fix or edit it, because that does cut down pretty significantly on the time. It cuts down therefore on the expense, like it is. And so you might have all sorts of human feelings about that, or like sort of knee-jerk reactions, and many people do, and certainly I do. And but it's also, it's to a certain extent, like I think it's probably just going to be happening. And
it's crazy. It's serious. It really is like pretty mind-boggling, like to take a step back and just look at just in the last 5 years, the change and everything. It's just so wild. Like I was recently putting in like job applications and resumes and everything, and like all the training for every job, whether you agree with it or not, they want you to know how to use it. They want you're going to train you. Do you know what I mean? Like, what are you going to do? Like go in and be like, actually, I'm going to go live off the grid. I'm good. That's what I want to do. But I
know
it really
is. And you're like I want to make a moral stand, but then you're like, well, I also want to be a valuable employee, and I want to have a steady job and health insurance and a paycheck. So it's
a slippery slope.
And it is like I feel like there's so many fine lines. I feel like I have so many weird little rules I've come up with myself for like what I can use AI on and what I can't, where it's like, if I'm like reformatting an Excel spreadsheet, I'm like, great, AI can do that and that's fine. But if I'm brainstorming marketing copy, like I don't want AI to do that, even if we're being encouraged to,
of course,
to lean on it. Like but those lines can blur pretty quickly.
Of course. Definitely.
Well, on a lighter note, are there any new translated works coming out that you think we should keep an eye out for? Bonus points if they're French.
Ooh, yes. Okay. There's a really weird one.
Ooh,
coming out
this
summer.
Thing.
I'm totally biased on this. It's a HarperVia book.
Of course.
And I'm working on it, but it's wonderful. So the English title is Lowly Creatures, and it's about these two guys in their 20s, these two French guys who basically bond over sort of their idealism about how worms will help save the world from ecological disaster.
That sounds so weird and so cool.
The cover's really, really good. I think it should be up online now. You can look it up. But it's funny actually. The French title was Humus, which I know like the soil. And I was like, man, everyone's just gonna think it's hummus. And then
it's true.
My husband saw me reading a copy of it and was like, "Are you reading a book about hummus?"
Does the cover of this have worms on it? Does it have worms on it? The cover of this?
Yes. Okay.
I feel like I've seen it.
Yeah.
I think it stood out to me when I saw it.
It's very weird, and but it's funny too. It's always hard to pitch a book as funny because you don't want to oversell it. You don't want like necessarily laugh out loud funny. But what I really like about it is, I feel like I'm very concerned about the environment and climate change. And it feels like it factors into a lot of the decisions I make in my life, to an extent, and then there are also other factors like convenience and whatever that maybe make it so that I don't always live perfectly in line with those values. But the book to me like really gets at this idea of how, with that specific concern, do you start an adult life that is in line with your values? And you sort of have these two men who, like, one of them moves to this rural farm that was his grandfather's farm and basically tries to do this like one man, like kind of Thoreau-esque experiment where he's like, I'm going to, make the soil rich again, and I'm going to do this. And then the other one goes into tech actually and ends up working at this like startup, this like worm composting startup. And so you sort of have like the one, like on one hand, sellout, but then he's like selling out, but then maybe that has more of an effect and more of a positive effect than, just the guy who's like just farming his grandfather's farm. But then that one is the one who's like really living the life that's in line with his morals. So yeah, that's what I found.
Sounds so good.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
I really want to read it now. So good job selling to us.
Well, speaking of translator pitches, actually, the translator for that is this really great translator named Stephanie Smee, and she wrote like the best pitch for it. Like sometimes you'll get these pitches and you're like, wow, do you want my job? Like, do you want to be the editor and the marketer of this book? You don't want my work for me. But yeah, she did an amazing job, and yeah, it was like one of the things that made me decide to really consider it.
That's awesome.
What's the source language for that one?
It's French.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So you get the bonus points.
Yes. Bonus points are yours. Do you have any favorite books? Not even like recent books, like that's a heavy question to ask. We all have favorite books and they can be numerous, but do you have any faves? We love asking people that on the pod.
Yes. I totally have favorites, but you're right. It's so hard to answer. Actually, someone asked me this once. I was in my Spanish lesson for a little while. I was taking these Spanish lessons with a private tutor, and she asked me, and I just went totally blank. And then the only thing I could think of to say was Jane Eyre, which it's true. I have read like 6 times.
Yes.
And I do love the novel, although I certainly find it more complex and weird and a little problematic as an adult than I did when I first read it as a kid.
Same.
But like, I don't know why that came out. It was just, that feeling where you're just like, oh my God, what is a book? Have I ever read a book in my life?
Yeah, that's when somebody's like, what are you reading right now? I'm like, let me check my app because I don't know.
But yeah, one that I reread recently, this is an older one, and it's not translated. This book called Brother of the More Famous Jack by this author, Barbara Torpedo. And I feel like I don't know that I've ever heard anyone else talk about this book. It's like a little bit, it's set in the 70s, and it kind of follows this like bohemian family and this girl who gets like really wrapped up in the sort of like mythos and environment of the family. And it's a little like Brideshead Revisited-y, but like it just set in a different era, and there's a love story, and there's sort of like a love story that goes wrong, and then there's another love story, and it's very smart. And yeah, it's hard to describe. But it was a rare novel that I loved. I think I first read it when I was 20 or so, and I loved it then. And then I reread it recently, kind of being like, oh, I hope it lives up to it. And it totally did.
Oh, so, nice. Yeah, I'll definitely read that for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Great. I love hearing about gems, like underrated books. There's so many good books out there. And
I want to ask,
I just love hearing about books you don't know about already. Yeah.
I want to ask now what you guys are reading and liking, but I don't want to give you the panic.
I got one. 200 Monas. It is not yet out, but it is so good. I stayed up way past my bedtime. I told myself I was going to read for a half an hour, and I looked at my watch and it had been an hour and a half.
Wow.
So, yeah, I think it's coming out in March. It's really
Ooh,
good.
soon.
And
200 months.
it already, I think it's got to be public knowledge because it was in like a Zoom thing that I signed on to. It already sold movie rights too, and it's not even out, and it's a debut.
Nice.
Yeah,
It's
Ashley's
by
been talking about that one a lot.
it's
I
by
requested the
Jan.
advanced listener copy on NetGalley today when I saw it on there. I was like, I shall try you on NetGalley.
It's worth it.
Oh, for sure.
This is good to know.
Oh, it's so fun. I love
I'm like Googling it on my phone now.
It's by Jan. I'm gonna say her last name wrong. Sands or something.
Nice. Awesome.
What are you reading, Em?
So, Misbehaving at the Crossroads. Have y'all heard of that book by Honoree? Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeffers. So I'm reading that. And then Ash is reading The Color Purple. And it's my favorite book of all time. So I am reading that with her. And I just finished or started making my way through Make Me Famous before this. I like to even if I've read a book already before we do any interviews, we always go back. It's just nice to dip back in. Well, I mean, you more than anyone would know that. Do you find that unless it really, really hits home with you that you easily forget things about books you read? But me too. My family thinks I lie about reading so many books. They do. They literally do. They're like, how do you not remember this? I'm like that with movies too. I can watch a movie and then my partner and I will be watching it and I'll be like, I've never seen this. He's like, we literally watched this twice. And I'm like,
I'm always relieved when other people say they have this problem too, because I'm like, it's something
embarrassing. It really is. But I always like to go back and read before we do a podcast. So, and Make Me Famous, I was telling Ash, I enjoyed it so much going into it the second time because wow, she is wild, Cleo.
Yeah.
I mean, whoa, dude, she is something else. Yeah.
She really is.
She really is.
She really is.
Yeah. It's funny. It makes me laugh a lot. And so did my husband.
Oh, good.
Yeah. Yeah. I thought my husband was really funny.
Yeah. I just love her writing.
Yeah.
I'm so excited.
Me too.
Well, I love that you love her writing. I'm glad.
You already, I think, answered my last question. I was going to ask about current projects, but
oh yes, yeah, yes, this fun little French fashion book.
Yeah, is that something that'll be out this year?
I think later this fall. It's from Hachette, it's from Running Press. It's like a sort of illustrated gifty book, but it's nice to sort of dip in and out. I get so excited when I start a new translation, and then when I'm halfway through, usually I'm like, what would it be like to end my workday and not have to go back to work?
That's a lot. Yeah, that's a lot.
So then I'm always relieved when I finish, and I'm like, I'm not doing another one for a long time.
Well, we appreciate what you do because it blows my mind. We literally would never have read Make Me Famous if it weren't for you. We wouldn't, there's just no, how would we have ever, it would never make its way into our brain if it weren't for you. So thank you so much for what you do.
Oh my gosh.
It's so super cool to get to talk to you as a translator. Well, also it's especially cool because you really have you are dipping your toes into wearing lots of hats in your industry. But it's just really neat to think about the fact that all these people who live in these different places than we do with these different cultures and ideas and minds, we would never get to it literature wise unless we learned the language, experience that. That's wild. Do you know what I mean? A lot of people read the book and you don't even think about what a translator is or does. And it has been fascinating to hear everything you've had to say. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, it's been so fun to talk to you guys. Thanks for inviting me.
Thank you so much for joining us. And for anyone listening, we're hosting a giveaway along with HarperVia for Make Me Famous. It ends next Thursday, so y'all still have time to get yourself a copy. And thank you so much to Gretchen for letting us chat with you today.
Thanks, Emily. Thanks, Ashley.
Yes. Thank you.
Have a good one. Take care.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.